Welcome back to Inside Criminal Minds, the series dedicated to analyzing an elite FBI team. If you are new to the series, there's a link in the description down below to check it out. This episode begins with a recap on Reid and his Dilaudid, adding the blow up from the last episode. This episode proper starts with Hurricane Katrina and a detective burning the midnight oil, talking with his son on the phone when and in his last minutes on Earth, he begins to scribe something on the wall that will be revealed later. At FBI HQ, they begin talking about the serial killer. Hey, what a coincidence. It's the one that the man was working on from before, who tragically passed away. As the team go over the evidence, they realize this is the same unsub, and luckily they are able to partner with the man's son, who just so happens to have the same name, but as a junior. But also thanks to Katrina, they only have one body because all of the evidence got washed away, meaning they have to wait until the unsub continues his strikes, until they can catch him. On the plane, Reid reminisces about an old friend of his who also wanted to join the FBI, but quit the first day of training, and Prentice...
He probably just couldn't take the heat.
It's not really for us to judge, is it?
Right.
Yeah, Reid is still showing animosity towards Prentice, and it just shows how the drugs still cause him a short temper, which is kind of funny, but also extremely sad. Also, after the scene, Prentice looks concerned about Reid. Then JJ hands out the newspaper articles of the unsub to discuss possible reasons for the unsub to quit for so long. Relocation, jail time, or something else entirely. And they discuss the victimology and how different they are except for the prowling grounds, which seems to be focused on the French Quarter in New Orleans. When they arrive, JJ, Gideon, and Morgan meet with Bill LaMontagne at the site of the most recent victim. And Bill seems to be infatuated with JJ. And I'm just going to start right here, rip that band-aid off right now. Eventually, JJ and Bill get married and have kids. It just makes me mad. They put all this effort into the Reid and JJ relationship with very little to no payoff to it. Now, they're still friends, but when JJ calls Reid Spence, it just seems a little bit more intimate than a normal nickname, which means I'm actually in the JJ Reid camp, and nothing that anybody will say is going to change that. And what was I talking about? Oh yeah, the latest victim. The unsub sends letters to taunt the detective, now taunting the son. Meanwhile, Reid and Prentice, man, Hotch is either clueless or just wants Reid to swallow his pride, because Hotch just picked them to team up, knowing what just happened last episode. Anyway, the coroner discusses the methodology of the unsub and how he finished the victim. And luckily, this is the same coroner from the initial victims, and it is revealed that the unsub could have medical training. Back at the crime scene, Bill explains his history with this area, which will come into play later. As he reminisces, Bill brings them to a carving on a wall left by his father. One word, Jones. Unfortunately, no hits on the possibility of it being the unsub, which Morgan points out it is more than likely that Jones isn't the unsub, that it is something about this unsub that is related to Jones. And I'll talk about this a bit later. Before the scene ends, JJ extends an olive branch and Bill doubles down on his determination to figure out the case. Hotch decided to blow up the letter on a projector, and the terminology sounds a lot like Jack the Ripper. That actually Reid figures out, which is good for Reid. He seems like the only person who would actually pick up on this connection. But as they discuss this, another victim is slain. When interviewing the friends, they learn next to nothing, but were able to create a profile to help canvass the area. During the profile, Prentice and Gideon step into old Victorian England in order to show what Jack the Ripper's backyard looked like. Next, we see a man walking the streets, and we begin to believe that this is the next victim when...
Jeez. Reid, you scared me.
I've always been one step ahead of you, man.
Yeah, whatever helps you sleep at night.
This was the friend that Reid was talking about on the plane, and they begin to hang out. Meanwhile, Garcia talks with Prentice about a victim of Jack the Ripper and informs that one of the victims in Texas matches Jack's MO, meaning that this unsub had less of a cooling off period than once believed. And when I cover Jones, I'll explain why this doesn't make any sense, at least to this unsub. But now Prentice, Reid, and Morgan need to meet with the victim's next of kin, but Reid continually ignores the call. Honestly, I think it's partially because Prentice called him, also because he is having fun, for lack of a better word, catching up with his friend. And Reid's friend would have actually made a really great profile because the entire meeting, he reads Reid like a book, giving credence to him wanting to join the Bureau in the first place. I also find it funny that his friend calls Reid's cell phone
The bat phone.
and the question that was laboring on Reid and our mind is why he left the Bureau the first day. But his friend gives Reid the opportunity to answer his own question, and he gets it right. And during this conversation, the friend points out that the drink is a way to help you forget, but not make it go away. And he thinks he's talking about the alcohol in Reid's hand, but we know it's a double meaning because of the Dilaudid. Also,
You're a genius. That's just dumb.
this is the first time anyone has called Reid dumb, but he does have a point. Like I've said, Reid is acting well off his norm, all due to his drug addiction and his time with Tobias. Also, the fact that Reid unalived Tobias, and other than LDSK, this is the only other unaliving he's done so far in the series. The big difference was Tobias was driven by multiple personalities, and Reid bonded with Tobias for at least trying to help him. And the last personality Reid saw was Tobias. That has to weigh on his soul a lot more than anything else, causing him to use and skip that plane. At the plane, Morgan arrives and they decide to go to Texas without Reid. Also, at the same time, Bill talks with JJ and they continue to flirt at a bar.
You always drink while you're still on the clock?
This is New Orleans, honey. It's a cultural thing.
I get the whole New Orleans thing, but I'd rather my detectives not drink. He does stop drinking in order to appease JJ and continue to work on the case while flirting. In Texas, Morgan and Prentice interview the victim's fiancée, and she explains the victim was surrounded by his friends. That gives Morgan an idea that this unsub is actually female.
What a twist!
Which makes sense for this unsub. Back in the police precinct, JJ wants to hold a press conference and Bill is against it. However, he succumbs to JJ's prodding and holds one. This is when Reid shows up with the lamest of lame excuses.
I didn't have any cell phone reception, so I didn't get your message until late.
Right.
This wouldn't work on anyone above a single-digit IQ. You expect it to work on the top minds at the FBI.
You're a genius. That's just dumb.
But they quickly move on. I also like how Prentice knows he's lying, but she just doesn't want to get into a fight about it when Hotch shows up and delivers the news of a new victim. Then Reid,
She's sticking to the Ripper's paradigm.
What do you mean?
In one letter of correspondence, Jack the Ripper promised to cut the earlobe off of his next victim, and he did. It was the one day that he killed twice.
meaning they need to stake out the French Quarter in order to find the unsub. And they got a new letter continuing the signature, and as they go over the letter, we see flashes of the unsub getting ready for the night. And she's wearing a red top, which is important because red is in style because multiple women are seen wearing a very similar top. Also, it's interesting that she is wearing red. It is the color of passion. It could be seen as her peacocking a little bit, trying to get men to follow her. It is a very bold color that helps lure men away. Also, it is the color of love. Interestingly enough, because of how she attacks these people, almost like she had continuous problems with love, and this is the only way she can show it. During the stakeout, JJ partners with Bill, of course, but they aren't the ones I really care about in this scene. I am more focused on Prentice and Gideon for this right here.
Come on. I think I'm not aware something's going on with him.
First off, I love the relief that shows up on Prentice's face. Like she is finally vindicated that someone else is seeing that Reid is behaving differently. Secondly, I like the fact that Gideon is not afraid to tell his team he's noticing things, which could be a little bit of a warning to Prentice that he's always watching, but he's not going to chastise you over it. Then we get a conversation with Reid and Morgan. And I love how Morgan is just straight to the point about it. He knows that the excuse he gave was terrible, so he's trying to get at the heart of that. Unfortunately, before he can go a little more deep into it, Reid spots a potential for the unsub, who is actually wearing a red top. But we quickly find out it's a red herring when the real unsub gets stopped by her next victim, as the team follow the wrong girl, as the real unsub lures her victim away. And this show really does like red herrings because we see another woman with a red top with her man, and it gets quickly stopped when she finds the next victim. The next morning, Reid stumbles on the next note inside the victim's mouth, which, with the cost of postage and the speed of delivery, you can't beat it. I do find it funny that Reid is a little more confused about the paper, as this is not the first time we've had a note from the unsub. But as they discuss the letter, Bill finds a stamp on the victim's hand and talks about a bar that used to be called Jones, in the same area the victims are laid to rest. There's a lot to unpack here. One, why not make it another cop or detective who knows about Jones? For example, an older cop, because the place changed its name 9 years ago. It would just make more sense if he said the word Jones and another cop or detective overhears it and tells them the story of how that bar changed from one place to another. Number two, Bill knows that the name was changed and went through all of his computer databases to figure out who is this Jones that his father was talking about, even though he knew that the bar was named after it, even after Morgan brought up the fact that the name has nothing to do with the unsub, but is crucial for the unsub. Number three, if Jones is crucial to the MO, why did she bag a victim in Texas when the signature requires the French Quarter, where she prowls? Just does not make sense.
This don't make no sense.
The parts of this episode I like is the unraveling of Reid and finally Gideon admitting to the fact that Reid has a problem. Almost everything wrong with this episode so far stems from Bill. And I guess I should give him a bit of grace when it comes to this because he is finishing his late father's final case to put it to rest. And so naturally, he isn't thinking clearly all of the time. Also, if your dad had a partner, why not talk to him at the very beginning? Because maybe he knows something. And that's exactly what they do right now. They did have a falling out because of certain things that I'll get into here in a second. But why wouldn't that be your first call? Your dad knows something about this place, Jones. It might behoove you to talk to somebody who was there years ago. Anyway, they do decide to talk with the partner after talking with Garcia, and I just love how she answers the phone. She's either referencing Walt Whitman, or selfishly, I want her referencing the Dead Poet Society.
Oh, Captain, my Captain.
Oh, Captain, my Captain?
Gentlemen.
Then JJ gets her to find the incident that could have triggered the unsub. That was a disturbance at this bar 9 years ago. Then the team meet with the ex-partner, and he is not happy to be there or to discuss that night. And personally, I don't like this guy from the beginning, meaning he is doing a great job as an actor, but a poor job as a detective. And during the telling of the night, he downplayed the essay of a girl that Bill's dad was trying to reprimand him for. He slipped away scot-free. Yeah, he is a terrible cop and a terrible human being as that goes too. They talk about this in gruesome detail, meaning he blatantly ignored her accounts of that night. But William Sr. at least acted with more dignity and respect, which is probably why she sent him the letters and not the partner, almost as a plea to get her to stop. After the story, the partner begrudgingly hands over one of the ones who essayed her after being threatened to do the same thing that William's father did. At the police office, they get the accused in an interrogation room. It is a nice touch that they use JJ and Prentice to do the interrogation because the guy would profile less threatened by women and more likely to give up the name of his victim, even putting him more at ease.
The statute of limitations is up. We just need a name.
I also find it funny that he calls Prentice Cher, which is just funny to me. While the interrogation is going on, Reid details Jack's next victim.
He mutilated and dismembered Mary Kelly in her one-room flat until she was unrecognizable. It's believed to be his most vicious kill of all.
Then JJ shows him the victims, giving him no choice but to tell them the unsub's name. This is where Garcia gives up the address of the unsub, and the team was also correct that she dropped out of med school shortly after the altercation. Then we see her and her next victim getting friendly as the team move their way to her house. Unfortunately, she isn't home after they clear the house. They find she charged a room to her credit card.
I got gloves, waste disposal bags, oxygenated bleach.
Why didn't we just go to the store?
Because 12% of all killers are caught buying cleaning supplies.
Or buy a hotel room with your credit card. Why didn't she just con the guy to pay, especially this far into her hunts? Anyway, Garcia finds the hotel and are able to save the victim before she gutted him like a fish, thanks to Bill. So I guess this is where he redeems himself by talking the unsub off the ledge. She goes to prison, and he goes to the hospital, all while JJ continues flirting with Bill by leaving her phone number. But the story is not over because Reid is at a club listening to his friend when Gideon arrives and talks to Reid about the missed plane and how Gideon knows Reid has been struggling since he had his moments with Tobias, which is the first time Gideon is actually having a heart-to-heart with Reid about what happened back in Revelations. And it is a great scene that I wish I could show in its entirety, but I can't. Thank you, TF1. Because Gideon has a great way of showing that he cares and that he understands what's going on with Reid. And Mandy Patinkin just perfectly delivers this message, accumulating in,
I'll never miss another plane again.
But now Reid knows that Gideon knows he's off. However, this does strengthen their bond. And as previously mentioned, I love the episode when it comes to the Reid parts, not so much about the JJ and Bill romance. And he has a New Orleans accent that is more distracting than anything else. And I know his story hails from the region. I just don't enjoy it. Maybe it's just I don't like his character or his relationship with JJ, and I'm just nitpicking his character because of it. It is still a good episode filled with just enough suspense. Thank you for watching. If you are curious on how a spy loses his job, check out Burned Notice, link in the description. And as always, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.